Welcome, guys, to another video. Today, I have a very special guest with me. I have Joseph Rodrigues, which, as you guys know, I absolutely love. Joseph, for those of you or for those of people that don't know who you are, would you mind just giving a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yes. So I'm a fan of this kind of information that we discuss. You discuss on your channel, I discuss on my channel. And the journey of starting with this information was through a book called Think and Grow Rich back in 2004. At that time, I was in $50,000 debt, and I followed the principles in the book, and then I got out of $50,000 debt. But I also discovered some interesting things. I discovered something called the subconscious mind. I discovered there are these beliefs and autosuggestion, and I can no longer identify with these beliefs. I thought I was the beliefs, and I was very identified with these beliefs of limitation. So then I was curious as to some of the words that he used in the book, some of which include subconscious mind and transmutation. And then I came across the movie The Secret and the book The Kabbalion, Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. And the journey continued. And through applying the information, the way I describe it is mind became purified, or the identification was released to these beliefs of limitation. And then I moved up in my corporate career. In 2009, I left and started an IT business, which I built a success. I ran it from 2009 to 13, applying all this information. And then in 2013, I transitioned into consulting and I started my other YouTube channel. And that ended up, now I say other because I have two. And
Yeah.
so the main one I started in 2013, and that grew to over 400,000 subscribers.
Wow.
And along the way, I discovered flow. And then in 2017, I made flow a priority, and all kinds of interesting things happened. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. I actually follow both your channels. I love the new one that you have about money because that's one of my new desires is to experience myself being that way. So
Oh, great.
absolutely love that. So you
That's
guys,
what started it all for me in Think and Grow Rich. It was literally get out of $50,000 debt. That was the first, as he called it, the definite chief aim.
mm, yeah, that's a pretty big one too, as far as worldly. That's really, really cool. I love that you shared that on the entrepreneur journey that you purified the mind because I recently had the opportunity where, obviously I asked you to come on the podcast or the YouTube channel, which you so graciously accepted. And the funny thing is the moment that you accepted it, uh, I noticed that all these untrue beliefs started arising. And what I mean by that, and I think this is so important to talk about because many people that I worked with, and also for myself, anytime that I've quote unquote leveled up, this appears in mind, and it's the little I telling me many things that came up in mind was one, well, anytime that you're in opportunities like this before, you failed. Or what if you don't know what to say? Or you're dealing with somebody who's super successful. Are you going to be able to, in many other untrue beliefs that arose in mind on the journey. And I found that it is absolutely the most wonderful thing to have opportunities like this because I don't know what I truly believe until I have these outward appearances of things like this. And in those moments, I get to truly see why I was not experiencing this type of thing before, whether it's a loving relationship, whether it's a loving business, or it's collaborations, or whatever it is that the desire is. When the desire comes to me and I accept it as thank you that I have that, it's simply all I do is just acknowledge, oh, thank you. Thank you, Father. And then I see an out picture of it. And then in that moment, all the little eyes thinking will come up, all the unconscious beliefs will come up, and it's in those moments I find the most helpful thing is, and you shared this in your last video, just becoming neutral, becoming the awareness, becoming the void, and the very act of doing that. I always call it I'm identifying with the space instead of the context of what's being said in mind. And I kind of wanted to hear, is that very similar to what your experience is on your journey? I'm sure you had very similar
Yes.
things.
I describe it like this now, similar to how you're describing in my videos over the last year or so. I am that pure awareness, witnessing all these things. These beliefs appear and disappear. They do not represent me. Clearly, they don't, as they suggest limitation. And I am that awareness prior to these beliefs or transcendent to these beliefs in mind or these thoughts in mind.
Mm,
So I just remain as I am, and then mine is purified. And what do you experience? You experience flow, you experience peace, you experience happiness, joy. This is Sat Chit Ananda. I am that pure awareness, witnessing my real nature as consciousness, bliss. Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. And Ananda, which is a Sanskrit word, may be translated into peace, happiness, joy, bliss. So those are ways that we can describe that experience in the body. That's what it's felt like.
mm.
Relief or peace by abiding as you are, that pure awareness. And these opportunities present themselves. So they're
Yeah.
like doorways into bliss, you can say, because you literally feel peace, happiness, joy, bliss, love when you do not identify, as you know that you do not identify, as in you are beyond the identification.
Mm. I love that. And then one of the things I relate to in your videos, you always talk about how when that condition is released, then it appears as though that condition is what stopped you from experiencing that which you are. Because I find that to be so true. When uh, in mind, I'm wanting to, I want to have a particular outcome, or I need this to be this way, or I feel like I'm lacking this, or I want this. And the moment that I release identification to it, that which I was seeking outwards for, I automatically just experience within. And as you share profoundly, that's been my experience as well, is that it is the very condition that I'm placing that I need this or I want this that stops me from feeling the way that I want to feel. Very interesting to
Yeah, the
observe.
condition, this needs to happen in order to experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, which is the real nature and unconditionally experience as these conditions are released. It is always there. So there's an opportunity to release these conditions, not identify with these conditions. That way, you experience a flow-based journey. The journey can be described, or the way can be described as flow
Mm.
or flow-based.
Yeah. What would you say is so for somebody who is starting out on the journey? Because I realized when I first started, there was many untrue beliefs in mind
Yeah.
continuously. What would you suggest to one the best way to get into flow? I have many suggestions from, hey, look around the room and observe without judgment, do a mindful breath. You can say I found affirmations to myself whenever I felt like I was in a storm of unconsciousness. I felt like saying affirmations to myself was very helpful to become almost rise above the storm and become aware. What have you found is the most helpful way to be in the moment,
I like how
especially
you
when starting
said
out?
many different ways to access the flow. The flow is always here now. It's eternally always here now. Yet what we can call accessing the flow. We can do it physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or a combination. Physically could be something like do what you love to do. I like to snowboard,
Me
go
too.
for a walk in the park, something like that, something with your breathing. Emotions, emotionally can be emotional release or something like that,
Mm,
letting the emotions be. Mental can be imagine yourself already being in possession of, or auto suggestion, as I learned from Think and Grow Rich. Spiritually is that I am beyond this world. I am beyond these thoughts. I am beyond this emotional experience, which is perfectly fine as it is. As I remain as I am, perfectly fine. The natural result of being as you are is flow.
Mm.
it feels like, oh, flow is back again.
Yeah.
So the way I talk about it now on my channel, I used to say it a particular way. I made flow a priority, and I still do that. I still make flow a priority. Yeah, that could sound like a thing to do. Flow is the natural result of being as you are. So any ways, whatever works, essentially, I say that now, whatever works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
one way is
agree.
not better than another too, I find. Because if I before said I need to do it this way or that way, like I have to do it the mental way, or I have to do it the spiritual way, or the physical way, the emotional way. Why? Why not just choose the easiest access to the flow, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever works.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think another really cool thing that this kind of goes hand in hand in with is manifest. And this is obviously a very
Yes.
big topic, and many people love conversating about this, and for good reason. I mean, I believe we're here to experience and enjoy things, and it's a beautiful topic. And do you find that that flow goes hand in hand with manifestation? I want to hear your
Yes.
answer before I.
Yes. Manifesting to me means I am already that.
Mm,
So in Think and Grow Rich, you have a definite chief aim. It's done. You are already that. So what that does is it takes off the pressure of trying to do something, needing to do something, forcing, the wanting, needing, waiting, craving, all that is released as you know you are that already. So the natural result of knowing that you are already that is flow. Now, there may be these I thoughts or these beliefs appearing, and those are opportunities to purify the mind, and you remain in flow. So flow is where we experience, sometimes I call it everything happening spontaneously, everything appearing to be in harmony, inner and outer as one. So it's like experienced as a dance. For example, in entrepreneurship, in the new channel, I talk about how relationships, resources show up spontaneously to be in harmony and in contribution.
mm,
Relationships can include vendors, clients, team members, staff, etc. They show up naturally, spontaneously. You're not trying to get those relationships or do all these things. All those things happen naturally. Body naturally flows as you know you are already that. It's unfolding in flow. So I describe it as flow.
yeah. I love that. Yeah, one of the things that I always talk about is I love taking that statement by Neville Goddard where he says, "You are who it is that you desire to be."
Yeah.
The only reason why you do not see it is your refusal to believe it. So that very statement is implying that I don't need to do anything because I am it. And
Yes.
and I like to reference this a lot and share also another thing that I came up in mind from this is I simply just do not allow myself to imagine to the contrary. That's really fundamentally I find what it is because I find
That
that
is it.
a lot is you know before it was what I need to do it. It has to be me. I have to make it happen. I have to do it this particular way, this amount of times. I have to convince myself. I have to, and this resulted in so much suffering and overthinking and emotional turmoil and reactivity to 3D appearances and neediness. And I did ultimately end up manifesting many desires through doing that. And it was a beautiful part of the process. I needed it in order to purify the mind on the way. But I find that today it's just simply that, and I don't desire as much as that's the interesting thing. I don't desire anywhere near as much as I used to. And it's funny that you talked about it, um, that you don't ever desire. And I thought, man, that's such an interesting thing. How do you ever create anything? And then I started just simply acknowledging whenever a desire came up in mind. I noticed the exact same thing. I just, the desire is for me to acknowledge that I have it. That's fundamentally
Yeah.
all that's doing. I'm recognizing that I have it. So it's not a doing, it's not a forcing, it's not a controlling. It is simply a thank you. I surrender. Thank you that it is that way. And then I go back into flow. I completely forget about it. And then, as you say, spontaneously opportunities flow. This flows. This lovely experience flows. But what I find is that I have as much bliss, joy, love, contentment from having a conversation with you as I do as when I'm sitting on my bed, as I do as when I'm going for a walk, as I do when I'm doing many different activities. So that's another interesting thing I see also, I observe is that there's no longer this will be amazing, but this isn't that fun. Do you have that same experience as
Yes.
well?
Spontaneous bliss, bliss for no reason, happiness for no reason or beyond reason,
Mm,
peace for no reason. Yes.
mm,
And I like how you said it too. The desire arises. Thank you. Desire points to fulfillment. You are already that.
yeah.
And then we can say you are desireless, as in you already have what you desire. So you
Yeah.
desire nothing. Yet those things spontaneously are added onto you. You're in flow. And not only are those things spontaneously added onto you, all those things that represent you as bliss are also spontaneously added onto you.
Mm,
So you
hmm.
experience bliss here, bliss there, bliss for no reason. And it's not based on condition, which proves the point that you are bliss.
Mm. That's so powerful. I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
And how freeing is that, right? Because in entrepreneurship, for example, you're not trying to convince the other person. You're not trying to get money out of them. It naturally flows as a flow-based conversation and a harmonious relationship. Naturally, we can call that appearance magnetism or charisma or being present or something like that. It's the natural fragrance of being manifested in form as an appearance.
I love that you said that. I just had a conversation with a buddy before our call, and we were talking about flow. It's really all I conversate about nowadays. And I was
Oh,
he brought
great.
up he brought up an example of overthinking versus flow, and it made me think of when I was doing sales. I was doing door-to-door sales, which brought up many overthinking in mind. From am I going to be able to do this? It's 100% commission. I have social anxiety. I'm afraid of reject, etc. All these untrue beliefs. And it was so funny because I recognized the days that in mind I'm going, the next time they say this, I'm going to say this. And it's just the mind's prepared. I'd go and I'd say these to the mind, these fascinating things that I'm like, this for sure is going to work. Sale doesn't happen. The next day I'd go and I would go, you know what? I'm just going to be in flow. I'm going to be in the moment. I am going to be in deep integration with that which I'm doing. I would make sale after sale. And it seemed, when I observed what I was saying, it seemed like very insignificant or things that didn't make sense as to why they'd want to do the sale. It was such an interesting thing to observe because I'm like, it just doesn't make sense to the little eye from its judgment, from its how it thinks it should go. And it would be just such a simple conversation, and it would end up sale after sale after sale. And that which I love would just absolutely flow. And it just brings me to the saying in the Bible, which is that, the Father's ways are past your level of understanding, and the Father doeth the work. And so I catch myself in so many areas where I will be in flow, and then the little I will judge and say, well, it'll have its little beliefs or little whatever. Oh, you were too direct there because it has in mind these certain ways that it should be. However, I know when I'm in
It's trying to
flow.
control things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Meanwhile, everything is under control.
yeah.
The Father doeth the work.
Mm, so true.
So
So
the
true.
work, it's interesting because one could say, what does that mean? The Father doeth the work. It appears like we're talking right now. We're having a conversation. We're doing the work, yet it's happening naturally. So the
Mm.
experience can be described as I can of myself do nothing. The Father would then do it the work. That's what it feels like in flow. It feels like everything is happening spontaneously. Yet body appears to flow. Your body appears to flow. Conversation appears to flow. Everything is in perfect harmony. This is a play of God. So that I does not need to interfere with the play. Why does it need to interfere? Maybe it thinks it can make it better based on particular experiences that are stored in the subconscious mind, life experiences, techniques, strategies, business ideas, etc. And while those things can be helpful, if they are called upon, they're called upon. If not, they're not. Another way emerges. Because then you can connect the dots looking backwards and said, oh, I said this thing, but then I don't form an identity around that. If I said that thing and it works, I say, well, it could work again. It may not. Maybe I may continue to say that thing naturally. Maybe I won't. Because again, the Father doeth the work. Because the I then thinks it has now a tactic. And I do
Yeah.
this all the time. And
Yeah.
then, it can be troubling for the individual if it doesn't work. Maybe it works sometimes, maybe it doesn't work.
It's I love that you bring that up. I was speaking with some ladies a while back, someone that I was working with to do something for my website, wanted me to speak to a couple people she'd been working with for a while, and it was so interesting. She said, "Oh, these people are authors and they're big speakers and such. Would you mind speaking to them? They're having some troubles." The most interesting thing that I observed was that I started talking to them about Bible verses, which isn't usually something that I will talk about. But I was in flow in the moment. I started talking about Bible verses, and these people ended up having a breakthrough as a result of what was said,
Yeah,
sharing Bible verses. And just to talk on your point is that if the little I will go, oh, it's the Bible verse. This is well, maybe I talk to somebody who's not into the Bible, and it wouldn't be effective in that scenario versus there. But the funny thing was is that I didn't need to know about them. I didn't need to plan. I didn't need to think of how to deliver this message. I simply sat in flow, and everything that was said exactly how it needed to be with the information that needed to be said.
yeah,
And as you said, it happened automatically. I observed it happening through me.
that's it. You may say this, you may not, you may say something else, yet it's effective, whatever you say. Whatever it is appears effective, let's say.
Yeah.
It appears to be effective. Yet, what is the cause of that? The cause of that is God. The
Mm,
cause of that is God.
so true.
So I do not try to interfere. It's a funny way of saying it. Lately, I've been saying do nothing. This is what I mean by do nothing. It doesn't mean you force yourself to not say anything. Do nothing means you stop trying.
Mm,
You let it be. And even letting be can sound like a thing to do.
can. Yep.
Do nothing, another way of saying it
Yep.
is I am that pure awareness, witnessing all these things. I remain as I am.
Mm,
What permeates the body? Well, there's a stillness in mind. What permeates the body? Peace, bliss. So one could even say then your body language adjusted. It looks more peaceful. Well, that is the natural result of abiding as you are, knowing you are that pure awareness, witnessing all these things to appear to be in perfect harmony. You don't even have to say that to yourself. That is how it is. That is it.
mm. Yeah.
And you are that. So you are that.
Yeah, but I love this information. I love sharing it from the rooftops. And many of my suggestions is to for people to listen to your information because I found that the general idea of consciousness was very helpful for me to find Eckhart Tolle. The understanding manifestation was very helpful to find Neville Goddard. And your information that I observed has been very helpful in simplifying because I used to think that I had to feel this way, which then causes you'll see many conversations of is it emotion, is it feeling, is it this, is it it causes many things in mind of
Yeah.
do make it happen, figure it out, and study, do more books, and your information is very nice because it's just simply like, hey, all we're doing is acknowledging that it is this way now.
Yes.
How could it
Existence
not be
is
this
enough.
way now?
And even that acknowledging existence is enough. Presence is enough. Being is enough. You are that. And Neville said the same thing. He says it in his way, Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
Presence.
Yep.
So existence is enough. Being is enough.
Mm.
Presence is enough. And you are that. The natural result of that is a feeling of bliss, happiness, peace, joy. The natural, it once you know you are enough, you are that pure awareness. It is enough. The natural result of that is you feel at peace. So there might be particular emotions, then you could describe it. Although that peace is the eternal peace, the way we may describe it is emotionally regulated or relaxed or calm or happy or joyful or something like that. And you didn't try to conjure up those emotions. You didn't try to push emotions aside, suppress them, or say, I shouldn't feel it. You acknowledge that you are that pure awareness, witnessing all these things, unconditional love, that witness of all these things. And what naturally results in that is the emotional regulation, the emotions arising and subsiding without resistance. Even things like emotional release then can sound like a technique, but that's a
Yeah.
natural
Yeah.
result of being as you are. You know who you are. You are that pure awareness that never changes. It is absolute, eternal, never changes, supreme bliss, supreme peace, always. That you never changes. The real you never changes. All these things appear to change. But as you know who you are, the body naturally relaxes.
Mm.
It's a manifestation of being. You see, emotional regulation, even thoughts, for example, in Philippians 4:8, whatsoever things are true, lovely, good report. That could sound like a thing to do. Try to think these thoughts. That happens naturally as well. Have you noticed? You'll just
Yes.
naturally imagine lovingly. You'll just naturally imagine
Yes.
ideally.
Yes.
How freeing, right?
Yes. It is absolutely beautiful. I can't tell you how many times that I've been in flow and I just see a picture flash before my mind's eye,
Yeah.
of like a manifestation that's flowing to me, or I'll be just walking and in flow, and they'll start saying these lovely things about myself or things that I'm
Yes.
going to accomplish or whatever it is, and it'll just happen automatically, and I'll just start feeling this bliss and this contentment. And then, another interesting thing that I observed is when the little I comes up, it's as if it's as if nothing changed, which brings me actually into a topic that I love to talk to you about because there's a lot of
Yeah.
talk of healing, and my personal opinion of healing is that it's necessary until it isn't. And so, what I mean by that is fundamentally, when I look at healing, healing is I'm identified with a personality that has a past, that has a whole bunch of hurt and has a whole bunch of experiences and has a whole bunch of beliefs. And healing is when I get to the point where I recognize that I am not the past. I'm not the story that the little I created through the life experiences. I recognize myself as the awareness because there was lots of healing I did for many years on my childhood. I was abused, these different things, right? And I would feel the energy and I would heal and I'd work through it and I'd talk about it. I'd create these beliefs. And I found that anytime that I reached that same level of consciousness or I became unconscious, it's as if nothing healed. It would be right back there again. The same issues would come up, the same triggers would happen, the same thinking would happen. The only thing that healed it for me was recognizing that I am the awareness and there's nothing to heal, as I am not the past. And this has been the most healing thing for me. And that to me was the purpose of becoming the observer when the emotions arose. That was the purpose of me becoming the observer when the little I was thinking something, was to, it's almost as if the more that I become conscious, the more conscious that I am more often. And so that was my experience. What is your thoughts on healing?
Similar to that. All those things were helpful. I remember doing NLP, timeline regression. All these things are helpful. And at a particular point, you realize that you are that perfect, pure awareness. There's nothing wrong with you. You transcend any kind of belief that there's something wrong with you. You know you are that. And naturally, what happens is mind purification. So, how does mind get purified? In the presence of God.
Mm,
What is the presence of God? The still I am presence. Everything is purified in the mind is healed in the presence of God.
mm.
Undeniably, the mind is healed in the presence of God. Miraculously. And then the manifestations of that are miraculous as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. So true.
Now I tend to talk more about this
Sure.
and the reports, not just from my own personal experience, but everyone that I work with is, we say, faster results. Why? One thing is a pattern stops. They stop, I stop looking for a problem. That they that stops is that I that is looking for a problem, trying to solve a problem, and then another problem, because it's looking for that eternal peace, that eternal love. So no shame and condemnation to the individual or the I. That eternal peace is that pure I am, still eternal peace presence that is witnessing all these things now, eternally, unconditionally. Once the I finds that, I relax into the being I am, and then mind is purified. That I thought I had a problem no longer arises in mind. Have you noticed that?
I have. I just had that with my wife probably about a month ago or so. I recognized that whenever someone would experience emotions, the little I in mind would arise and would say, "Oh no, this is bad," or "This is what this looked like when she left before." Or, "This is there's problems." It would give all these different, and I love asking this question: why does it have to be this way? Why do I have to have her be this way? Why do I need her to be happy? Because I noticed that this would be a very common thing to fix it. I want to fix it, say the right things, do the it's not okay. Why do I need to fix it? And what I found is, well, so I could feel secure, so I could feel harmony, so I could feel that everything was okay. Well, I know that that comes from within me, and so I said, "Thank you that it is that way." It's funny as I observed the thoughts stopped judging and needing her to appear a certain way. She could be as she was, perfect, and then I could be as I am, perfect. And it was funny as I watched her real time lovingly rearrange herself, and that situation ended up becoming an opportunity for us to have a wonderful conversation and experience more love and bliss together. And so that has been my experience with practicing this is recognizing if sometimes if there's a lot of um, and I trust most people recognize this, beliefs will create a lot of confusion over complexity and a lot of riddles and uncertainty and just it's just part of a belief system in my experience. And it can sometimes be so simple to just either A, become neutral, which just means becoming the awareness, which will
Mhm.
step me out of it, and then I'll immediately gain clarity and insight. Or I can become awareness and ask myself, why do I need this to be this way? And in there, I'll find a desire, some desire that I needed to be like this so I can feel like this, or I'll be successful then, or I'll finally accomplish something that, whatever it is. And I find that there's very similar ones almost for every situation that's reactive to. There's very similar many manifestations of different beliefs that kind of camouflages itself differently. But I will find the desire and then accept, thank you that I have it. It'll purify it. And then the next time that I go into that situation, the little I won't come up. It won't suggest the way that it did before. I'll
Yeah.
simply be in flow. The person can be as they are. And I just observe it lovingly and harmoniously rearrange. So a situation that used to cause pain or result in a way that wasn't preferred automatically ends up being ideal, and my mind
Yes.
is purified.
Yes. Well, congratulations to that.
Thank you.
You know, that I is looking for happiness. You even said it. If she did this or that, then she can be happy and then I can be happy. That's conditional. That I is looking for the source. So the source
Mm,
is happiness. So desire arises, thank you. Happiness. I am happiness for no reason. Or you can say the desire pointed to happiness or fulfillment. So now that condition has been released. So as you're having a conversation, there's no I thought there of now she needs to do this or that. Then she can be happy and then I can be happy.
mm,
All of that is gone. What naturally arises is happiness. And we can call that being transference. We can say it appears that way as that happiness being transferred. Or another way of saying it is happiness is reality. It's
mm,
appearing, it's emerging. Why do I want to interfere with it emerging? So they may describe it to you. They may say, while you and I were having a conversation this time, I felt you were really listening. Or they may say something like, this time you were calmer, or this time you were at peace. Whatever they say, they're essentially allowing that, we could look at it that way. They're allowing that happiness to emerge. The space has been provided. You
mm.
just remain as you are. Happiness emerges. Yet you remain as happiness the whole time. So the way I like to say it, it's happening at the same time. Happiness is happening at the same time. Because if I said that I did it and therefore she did it, then I may form now that condition. I need to do
Mm.
this and that. Happiness is my real nature. It just appears more so. So, what that results in, for example, in business, is in consulting and coaching, is they show up, I listen, I genuinely see them as they are, happiness. And I may not imagine what that looks like. I may, but I can feel it. I just abide in that happiness feeling. And it could feel like, happiness kind of emotion. This is not like toxic positivity trying to be happy. This is the natural fragrance of you. You are naturally like that. And why I like Ananda, because it can be translated into happiness, peace, joy, bliss, is we could say those are different flavors of the same thing, or different ways of articulating the same thing, that Ananda. And sometimes it could be you're at peace having a conversation with them. And then they may say a few things. There may be an emotional release. Then they feel at peace. And you might not have said anything. Maybe you said something and that happens naturally. Maybe it doesn't. But that peace naturally arises. Or you're feeling joy and then they start feeling joy. It appears that way. You see? Because everyone is
Yes.
looking for that. She's looking for that. You're looking for that.
Yep.
Every individual is seeking for the source. We only desire to know slash be as we are or who we are.
Mm.
Desire means you are that. So you desire to be as you are. There's also a desire to know who you are. Who am I? Where do I spring from? I am that. Once you know that you are that, of course, I would desire to know the source because once I know, then what happens is I know where that eternal love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment is. It's
Mm.
in existence, it's in presence, it's in being for no reason, no condition, not because of this or that.
Yes. I love that. And another thing that came to mind while you were talking and sharing that beautiful truth is how, like, I can't tell you how many things that I thought that I wanted when I was identified with a little I. There were so many things I said, this thing and this thing and this thing, and there were so many things that I thought that I wanted. And the funny thing is that once I started making just being in flow continuously a priority in my state of being, many of these things left me, and things I wasn't even aware of that I desired flowed. And I've
Yeah.
experienced this too with many people that are in the community that I'm a part of, and they have shared the exact same thing, but they thought, well, I want this and they want this, and they're, visualizing and affirming for this thing. And then they start practicing flow, and all of a sudden, oh, well, you know what I really wanted was to experience this, and it was so crazy the moment that I recognized I wanted this. Well, this opportunity then presented itself within a couple of days after that moment. It's been so wonderful. And that's such a cool thing too, that
It is.
is just so mind-boggling and kind of goes, I see the importance now why Neville said, well, you got to find first what you're desirous. And he says it sounds like it's so easy, but for many it may be somewhat of a challenging process to find it. And part of the reason I found why is because of the on the little I's desires or oftentimes I think different than what I desire when I'm in flow.
Yeah, the desire from the heart is a pure desire that can appear in various forms,
Mm.
whatever forms. Yet the beliefs may distort that desire. And so it appears as while they're in flow, they no longer desire that thing. So, for example, I noticed this in conflict. They desired to, though they said that is not the real desire. The real desire is happiness. And I didn't tell them this. They actually said it. How? Because they thought that by calling up this friend and getting into a conflict, that will result in happiness. After I tell my friend off and put them in their place, etc., then I can be happy. So I'm gonna keep calling their phone and text message them, and only when I get them on the phone and speak my mind, then happiness is what they're actually looking for. No shame and condemnation is that happiness again, which is
Mm.
not based on that condition. So while in flow, what happens is they experience happiness. Now they no longer want to do that thing.
Mm.
You see that? So it's interesting. While in flow, they can relate to the desires of the heart truly. They never really wanted to do that thing. It was just an illusory belief that seemed to distort the true nature of desire, the meaning of desire. Because it says in the Bible again, what is it? You might know this passage. Rejoice in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart.
Yep.
Absolutely. While in flow, what are you doing? You're rejoicing in the Lord, right?
Yep. 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 And everything flows. It
Yes.
it's so simple and so effective and so beautiful. And yet the thing and I'd like to talk with you about this a little bit more because I find that this is probably the biggest challenge that I observe that others have when I'm talking to them about flow is that they will uh I notice that they try to make it into a concept. They try to make it into a you talk about all the time. It's not a thing to do. I'm not forcing myself to be this way. It's just allowing myself to be as I am, which is the
Yeah. You can do nothing to be in flow, essentially. It is a manifestation of being as you are. Now, that might sound nebulous. In all fairness, that would have sounded nebulous to me back in the days because I would say, well, that doesn't sound very practical, but that's okay. So, what I teach is, okay, what's the flow-based activities? For me, flow-based activities, spontaneous travel, going for a walk, snowboarding, perfectly fine. That's where you experience flow, perfectly fine. Then you may also discover that as you are in flow, you may inquire, what is going on while in flow without overthinking it? There's no I thought of limitation. So
Mm,
what remains? Only being remains. And if then, let's say, is this what is referred to as I am aware of this? I am this awareness witnessing. You do say, oh, I know what is being discussed here now in that moment. So then what you can do is, let's say you're having an experience which you might not call a flow-based experience. You can say, can I experience flow here without that flow-based experience or snowboarding? I am that awareness. And then all of a sudden your body's in flow now. Conversation flows. You know what I'm talking about?
yes.
So one is not better than another
Yes.
because the individual in mind is maybe thinking one is better. It's the this versus that. This is better than, and then it's just generating another conflict or confusion in mind. Then it becomes a concept and a tactic. You see?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Then there are individuals arguing about the concept and not experiencing the flow that is there, but the emotional turmoil, etc., not being in flow. That moment, let it be. It's beyond the concept.
Mm. I love that you said that. I've been blessed with so many opportunities the last couple of weeks. I almost feel as though those opportunities are almost better than the experiences because it's such a great opportunity for me to release this on true thinking to be as I am.
Yeah.
And I've had several of them within the last couple of weeks. There was a member in my group that had a particular belief that they had that I found that there was reactivity when they shared, and I thought, well, let me sit here and become the awareness and observe what's
Mhm.
happening within me because I know any time that I'm experiencing anything, and I've just become so aware of my inner state of being that the slightest little change, and it's let's take a look at what's happening here. And it was just reactivity and all this, having this certain mental position. And I'm like, I realized that while in flow, I may have my preferences. In fact, I know I do have my preferences, and I do have certain ways of being. And I do have certain ways of describing information or sharing things, or my energy is a particular way.
Yeah.
However, I know that if I am ever having a mental position or I'm opposing something, 100% of the time it's a little I in mind every time because I may not prefer what another individual is doing, but if I have an opposition to it, then clearly for me there's an untrue belief in mind that needs to be released because I find that fundamentally, and I believe you said this before, is that life is neutral, and so I never have a problem with an outside experience ever.
Well, I say life is bliss. But yeah,
100%.
in that neutral position, we can call it that,
Yeah.
what naturally emerges is
Yeah.
the fragrance of being, which is bliss, happiness, peace, joy, without trying to conjure up those emotions, without
Mhm.
trying to
Yep.
conjure up those thoughts. So, yeah, neutral point. It's like interesting because you return to that neutral point through neutralization. Many ways to neutralize. Then what a person might do is then say, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to imagine this, or I'm going to get into this feeling, which is perfectly fine. But what also happens in that neutral state is all those things happen spontaneously. They may spontaneously go and do something that they genuinely love to do. Spontaneously. They
Mm.
may spontaneously start to think about particular things. The Philippians 4:8. Spontaneously they feel happiness, peace, bliss. You see what I mean?
Yes. Yes. Mm. Yeah, this is absolutely phenomenal. I'm so grateful that you're talking about because a lot of people in my school community call me Mr. Flow, and I'm like, dude,
Oh, great.
yeah, I'm like honestly, I love.
You are very flow based. I
Thank you,
feel I feel the flow with you.
thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah, like I said, I mean, you were a huge part of this for me, and I was talking to many people about her. I'm like, dude, yes, I finally get to do it with Joseph Rodriguez. I'm so grateful. Been such a huge part of.
Oh, congratulations on putting together the school community.
Yeah, thank you,
Congratulations. It's
thank
really
you.
great that this information is being spread.
Yeah, and for a lot of information that I share, it's usually on a specific person, which I found that because my experience was in that aspect, it was with wanting to experience a blissful relationship with my wife. That was my heart's desire, and I had a very challenging, and many times it's to the place of where I wanted to just leave, leave the earth because I was in so much emotional pain and so much overthinking and that I found that hey, this was my entry point. Many come in from finances, they come in from a person is a very common one. You have many different entry points that happen, and so I decided to go down this route of well, can help them practice understanding manifestation, understanding flow, so that their quality of life is very uh, it just multiplied it so much better. That's like the biggest thing that I'm interested in. It is pointing towards the experience of flow, because although I'll talk to them about flow and put it into a concept, it's really pointing towards the experience of it.
Well,
And the best that we can do,
being in flow, they naturally, it manifests as them being in flow. Have you noticed?
that's what I observe. Yes. It's
Yeah.
it's
That's
crazy
why
how that
I
works.
love coaching, consulting, etc., with respect to flow, because I found that that was what resulted in individuals appearing to be in flow. It's just
Mm.
being in flow. It's the silent teachings.
It's
It's
so true.
the is it, and so we may use some words and we may talk about concepts, which is perfectly fine. Yet even what we say is complementary to that flow.
Mm.
But I mean, and it could be, we might not even talk about it. Like dance, for example. Dance. Wow. I used to DJ back in the days. Music,
No
dance,
way.
communicates. Like it brings people into flow. Have you noticed?
Yes, I love music.
Music, dance, silence, nature, without even uttering a word. And again, one way is not better than another. But I find that by being in flow, the natural result is people appear to be in flow around you. They just become flow based, we can say, without trying to get them to be flow based. It's not like you're, because when you're in flow, it's only flow to you. Have you noticed? It's like they say to the enlightened one, all are enlightened. So to the flow based one, everyone is flow based.
Mm.
Have you noticed?
Mm.
And we're just having a wonderful time being
So
in
it's
flow
so
together.
true.
But they thank you for it. They'll say, "Thank you, Joseph. I was having this challenge. This is what I experienced prior being part of this group. I can be me." These are some of the things that they might say. I can be who I am. Oh, that's very accurate.
It's very accurate.
I experienced flow. I noticed that maybe if you do Zoom sessions, for example, it's 2 to 3 hours. Let's say flow for 2 to 3 hours. That that afterglow of flow, let's say, is brought into their next engagement, whether it be a relationship, conversation, business conversation. Have you noticed that?
So true. So true. I also observe people, I'll have an hour or 2 hour session, and within 20 minutes, this all makes sense. It,
Yeah, this is
it
it. Yeah.
happens often where I'll just observe somebody that comes in appearing a particular way and then transforms as ideal within 20 minutes of the conversation. Like I just makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Yesterday,
Yeah.
I had an in-person session, and this individual does not watch my videos, but was referred to me by someone who watches my videos. And she never watched any of my videos. So she didn't know what the session was going to be like in person downstairs. And so within like that, a handful of minutes, she know who she was.
Mm.
It started off at, I'm this person describing these attributes. And then all of a sudden, I know what you're talking about. And then we started talking this way. I am that pure awareness. And then anytime she brought up something, we could say that was that I identified with. Right away, she was able to release that identification because I would say something like, and who is aware of that? Unconditionally. Oh, I got it. So she kept what we can say it appears as continued to shift all throughout. Shift, 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 which is just we can describe it that way. She is already that. So, I mean, to say shift could sound illusory, but you get what I'm saying. It's
Yes.
the release, the release, the release.
Yeah.
And by abiding as you are, you just naturally see people as they are, or experience them as they are, witness them as they are. And then it manifests as that, exactly how you describe. That's why we love what we do.
It's
I was
absolutely
kind of
beautiful.
doing this in my IT business. I talk about this on my entrepreneurship channel as well. I said that it wasn't just the IT services. We could say that was a front, but I don't see it as a front. They genuinely wanted the IT services. Yet the conversations that were happening in the background were not to this degree now, but were something like this,
Mm.
somewhat like this, which then clarity would emerge for them. So their businesses would start to grow. They would come up with creative ideas. They would like having me and my team in their office just hanging out. And so what would happen is they would choose us as the IT service providers because the other IT service providers didn't offer this. That was infused, that didn't offer this. Although, as also I'd mentioned, I made flow a priority in 2017. This was back when I'm talking about the IT business stories, 2010, 11. It was teeter-tottering. Sometimes I was in flow, sometimes I was not in flow. But
Really?
then when I asked myself the question, when would the results, the happiest, the joyous, results oriented, like all these things, the results were happening, social life, personal life, health, wellness, all these things were happening. The word flow came up. And I
Mm.
said, I'll just make flow a priority. It was while I was in flow where they would experience that. So the flow is transferred, infused, and why I teach it for entrepreneurs as well is whatever you do, infuse the flow in there and benefit greatly from it. You get referrals, you, you may get referrals. Generally, you'll get referrals because people love that experience.
Yeah.
Referrals, ongoing business with the clients, they're open to new opportunities, and they might not be able to describe it. They might say something like, I like your energy. I like being around you. It's always so much fun when you come by. You see what I mean?
Yep. Yep. So speaking of that, I wanted to ask you about your book. I know that you just came out with your book. I haven't had the opportunity to read it as of yet, but I'm
Yes.
I'm going to.
Look here.
Yes. Uh, would you mind sharing a little bit about it? I know before you talked about Acres of Diamonds, which for whatever reason in mine kind of I feel like is what you reference a lot of the time is like you have the $1 million now. You're sitting on so many different opportunities that can make you $1 million in a million different ways. And is
Yes.
is that what the book's about?
Yes, from personal experience. It's called The Direct Path to $1 Million. Turn what you already have into a fortune. You already have knowledge, wisdom, stories, expertise, reference experience, life experience, and all of that is valuable. It can be turned into a product, a service, product and or service, etc. That's what I did with my IT business. I grew up with computers. And then in consulting, I did that with the business experience that I acquired, plus my corporate 10 years, turned it into consulting, started the YouTube channel, sharing my stories, wisdom, reference experience, life experience, a distinct style of communicating, my style with the mind maps, etc. And people enjoy it.
Yes.
And that turned into a very successful business as well, the YouTube channel. So that's what this book is about. It's about you already having access to everything. And not only in your mind you have access to everything. You also access the superconscious, where Nikola Tesla used to get his inventions from.
Mm,
Remember, he would go into his imagination and build the inventions, and then it would work exactly like how he imagined,
yep.
which is profound. So all these things exist in imagination. You have access to that. Plus, within your mind, you also have the stories, reference experiences, etc., formulas, this and that. And then you also have access to relationships, assets, intangible assets, digital assets, physical assets that can be combined in creative ways to create products and services, to generate visitors over to your websites, offers, to acquire clients, to engage in ongoing business with existing clients, to do partnership deals, referral deals, etc. So that could sound like a lot of things, but what I did was I condensed it from my experience of building 3 successful businesses and doing these things through combinations, multiple streams of income, etc., in a very cohesive way. So that's the book
Awesome. And if people wanted to check it out, is there a link on your website or can they find it on Amazon or
on Amazon.
Amazon? Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I found it's funny that the reflecting and being on
By
my
the way, you're
my
already doing what's in this book here.
I appreciate
You are
that.
living this. Yeah.
Thank you for acknowledging that. It's what's so funny is that I was sitting in flow the other day and my desire, not sure why it is, but I just simply accepted it, was to do this on a level that Tony Robbins does.
Oh,
And
fun.
and so I accepted it. And the funny thing is I look back and I went, well, I'm a drug, I used to be a drug addict. I was doing very heavy drugs and almost died from this. Very challenging trouble childhood. I did what is the name of that where you speak? It's a group of people that get together, a bunch of entrepreneurs that get together to speak. They have meetings.
The 12 steps.
Well, I actually did speak there, yeah, in AA.
Yeah.
I did speak there for about 10 years. I went around Arizona and California and spoke at different places, which was a wonderful opportunity. But it's
You talk about Toastmasters.
thank you,
Yeah.
Toastmasters. And so at these times I'm doing these actions and I have no idea why I'm doing these actions. I'm like, I don't really like speaking. Why am I speaking? And it just coincidentally happens to be part of the program, or I
It
have
is.
this mentor and he tells me to do it. And now I look back and I'm like, isn't it funny that the desire that I have, and this is why I'm always like, the desire is a promise to you, is because look at how custom, look at how unique, and look at how intimate it is to you.
Yeah.
If I had a desire where it was like to go and be a gardener, I'd be like, that's dumb. Well, at least personally for me, I'm like, I don't relate to that at all. I don't desire to do this. But every desire is
Yeah, it might
so
be somebody else's desire, which is perfectly fine.
sure, which is beautiful. Yeah, beautiful it is. I just mean for me personally, like it
Mm.
wouldn't align with me.
Yeah.
And however, for every desire that I have is just so unique and so personalized to that which I love that it has to be. It just makes sense that it's a promise. And I find that with my experiences that like everything aligned perfectly with the desire. And did you have a very similar?
Yeah. It is like that.
Yeah.
When I was building my IT business, a desire arose to teach speed reading workshops.
Mm,
Now, a person may think, why would you teach speed reading workshops when you're building an IT business? Isn't it the ideal thing to do to focus on your niche? Well, I teach in entrepreneurship a very flow-based way, so the answer is depends with me. And to prove it in equation, I ended up teaching those speed reading workshops, and I not only made good money teaching it, the partnership deals that came with that organization, it's called Iris Reading. They're North America's largest speed reading organization. They do all kinds of workshops. Back then, they were doing workshops all over the place, North America, Canada. I was teaching them in Canada, Saturday, Sunday. What was being cultivated was my communication skills, sales skills. I actually got business deals out of it and
oh,
a
very
whole
cool.
bunch of other benefits. Paul, the founder of Iris Reading, and I became friends. We did some partnership deals on some programs. We did events together. All of that, connecting the dots, looking backwards, translated into the number goal because I had, Earl Nightingale, one of my favorite audios, The Strangest Secret. He would say, set a number goal. And the way I related to it is everything is related to that number goal and it's related to everything else. So it's
Mm,
not just about the number, it's about flow, all areas of your life. I see it all in harmony. I don't see the number is going to take away from my personal life and these kinds of things. I don't relate to it that way. I relate to it all in a way that it's perfect harmony. It's just a point, a reference point. It's the desired outcome. Yet when the outcome happened, what is when you connect the dots looking backwards, you go through the spreadsheets, you check your revenue, you check the income sources, and it was all these different configurations. And then you say, okay, wait, the next phase, now I want to get into consulting. Well, I did public speaking for a while and I felt comfortable making the YouTube video. So one thing led to the next. And, I used to listen to the Steve Jobs commencement speech over and over again when I
great
was
speech.
building my IT business. And he said, that you can connect the dots looking backwards. And he was talking about his own story, how he dropped into the calligraphy class. And I said, that makes a lot of sense. We can call that nonlinear. It just happens. And so, yeah, a desire may emerge, we can call unconventional. It doesn't make any sense. That's perfectly fine. It some way, somehow connects. When you connect the dots looking backwards, you can tell the story like we're talking right now. And that's what I also mentioned in my book. That story is valuable.
Mm,
So why is it valuable? Because many entrepreneurs come to work with me. They feel that they should, need, must do whatever particular strategy or technique in order to grow their business, whether it be a marketing technique, a sales technique, or a sales process, marketing process. And I say the answer is depends. And they're like, really? And I say, yeah, from personal experience, the answer is depends. Because I didn't do things by the textbook. Although I read a lot of books, what I found was some of those things were helpful, and the other things I put aside, which is perfectly fine. And even some of those things I did it according to my variation, which is the intuitive way, which is also what Steve Jobs mentioned. He said, follow your heart and intuition, everything else is secondary.
mm,
So I listen exclusively to my intuition.
Mm.
I'm not worried about if it doesn't make sense to people in this world. Because I found that upon connecting the dots, looking backwards, then I can articulate the story. And when I share the story, it makes perfect sense. So I put it in this book and it makes perfect sense. Yet while I was going through it, if I communicate it, there's a lot of these moving parts and a lot of things I didn't know how it was going to emerge. You see? And that's perfectly fine. Like that's normal, you know?
Yes.
Otherwise, we're going to try to rigidly conform. And by the way, you are beyond conformity anyways. That still I am presence never conforms. That still I am presence remains eternally as it is perfect, as the witness of all these things since you were born and prior to that. It's the
Mhm.
eternal, everlasting love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, which never conforms. It simply witnesses this play. Way I like to say it is for the individual experience is the world appears to dance with you. This is a play of God. It's God witnessing the dance, yet it's an interactive dance. So the dance is described as the entrepreneurial journey, the stories, the taught the speed reading workshop, and all kinds of wonderful experiences. I had so many experiences. Like, for example, one time I did 16 flights in 30 days teaching these workshops. Like, what a story. I mean, I have all these stories that happened while I was doing that. But that is a wonderful experience. I would not have uh, how can I say it? I would not have not had that experience. I would have, I rather would have had that experience, another way of saying it, because that's such a wonderful experience to have. But if I force myself to do things according to structure, that doesn't feel flow-based to me. But I got to, it's like God took me on this amazing journey.
Mm.
16 flights in 30 days, because they had paid for all those flights. They paid for the hotels, they paid for the flights, they paid for my speaking fee. I paid for nothing that entire month except food. That's it. And I don't eat that much, but
Wow.
and then my fees and everything. How much fun, right?
That's wonderful. That's so cool. And you talked about another wonderful thing too. You got to purify your mind on the journey because
Yeah.
I observed as you talked about how particular emotions would arise in relation to the event when it was coming up, and it gave you a wonderful opportunity to purify the mind too, which is I think just as valuable.
Yes. It's priceless.
Yeah, yeah. Because then the next time you have a similar situation, mind's purified. There's no
Yeah.
reactivity. There's simply just enjoying, allowing
Yeah.
everything to be.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly like that. It was full-blown anxiety, but it was also mixed in with excitement. So then I know that it was essentially what I genuinely desired to do. It was just some resistance generated by those beliefs. So we dissolve those beliefs. What happens then is you feel excited prior to the workshops. So then what eventually happened was the workshops would, let's say it was a Friday or let's say it was a Saturday or Sunday. Before, it would be anxiety building up from Monday to full-blown anxiety on Friday, but I would do it anyways. But I would not just do it anyways. I would also release the identification. So I wasn't just
Mm.
forcing myself. I wasn't forcing myself to do it. It's more of releasing into it. So relaxing into the flow, we can say. It got to a point where I don't feel it at all. It's literally, if we do an event this Saturday, I'm ready to roll if I feel like doing it. Yet there won't be no anxiety. It would be an excitement.
That's
So
wonderful.
that's one of the benefits of this information.
That's wonderful. That's freedom. That's freedom
Yes. Freedom to
because
do the things you genuinely love to do. I was going to do those things anyways. Those beliefs just were just distorting realities the way I see it. And so I just released them. They are not me anyways. You are that pure awareness that
yep,
is not distorting reality. How can you distort reality?
you
You
can.
only see the play of God fundamentally.
Only little I can, right? And did you recognize too that I've noticed like for the example I shared with my wife, it was I did it one time and that was it. Now with as I shared in the beginning, when I was uh, blessed with this opportunity to have this flow based conversation with you, the little I persisted many times. So it wasn't a recognizing why do I need it to be this way or and then acknowledging that I have it and then it
Yeah.
was purified. I would find what it was that I was desiring, acknowledge that I had it, and then maybe 20, 30 minutes later, another little I thought came up and very deep emotional response to it. And I would do the same thing, and it appeared as though it wasn't a in this instance a one-time thing, whereas in many instances it is a one-time thing. Did you have experiences like this as well?
What has been really helpful for this is what persists eternally without trying to persist.
The awareness.
Yes.
I am.
So inevitably, I started relating to those I thoughts and the I in that way. That I is the eyewitness of God. It's here to experience the love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. That's the individual experience. So that pure awareness, I abide as that pure awareness. Or another way of saying it is you just turn to God. You just go to God. And the way is I am that pure awareness. I
Mm,
am the way. Then what happens is those thoughts dissolve. They're not identified with. So there may be particular kinds of situations or opportunities where there may be a persisting of these I thoughts. But I know what persists eternally is that everlasting peace, love, happiness, bliss, pure awareness that never conforms. And I am that persisting as I am, eternally as I am. You see?
yes. And it's funny
You are
because
that.
that
And
answer
that
kept flowing.
persistence, that I am persistence is not a force-based thing. It's we can even say, I mean, honestly, you can say it's the most effortless thing. It's that I am awareness. It's is it trying to persist? Can it conform? Why does it need to conform to something of this world in order to be or in order to get when it already has everything, is everything that is in perfect harmony? The eternal, there, besides that, there is no other.
Mm,
So
so true.
there's nothing to be in conflict with, or nothing that needs to happen for it to say, now I can experience peace.
It's so
It
funny
is
because
just peace.
yeah, I intuitively, it was funny because I intuitively knew it was whispering to me the whole time of just be. And the mind, it was just I think why it was a especially beautiful opportunity for me is because it's been correlated to so many different opportunities since the personality was little of similar type of
Yeah.
experiences were considered big or considered out of its comfort zone. And so because it was a unique situation, for whatever reason, I find that, from time to time this will happen in mine where it's like, well, I must need to do something different here than what I've been doing in every other aspect, which is just being as I am. And it's so funny because it literally always is the answer, and it's the answer that I always give too, because I find that it really is fundamentally the only answer.
It's I'm glad you see it that way as well.
Yeah.
You know, I continuously also give myself that answer, that the answer is that I am that.
Mm,
That is it. And it does emerge in mind as an answer or clarity, or as mentioned, body spontaneously moves, or something appears to transform here to reflect that pure being, bliss, happiness, peace, fulfillment.
so true. So
And
true.
it's happening in flow. So this conversation is flow based. It's happening. Like these things, I don't know about you, but I don't think about what to say to you. It just happens, right?
Yes. And
So
I
it's a conversation from the heart, not filtered. Doesn't need to be filtered. Why does it need to be filtered?
and I find that that if I do try to control in mind, that it's where things appear a way that I wouldn't love them to be. Oftentimes, it was the same thing with sales, and I too
Yeah.
reflect back on the times in my life where I was in flow. The opportunity, whether I was on, going out on dates, or I was doing business, or I was doing sales, or I was communicating, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
I too was able to reference those times where I was in flow and the outcome ended up almost like it was like, maybe on a date, usually socially they say, oh, the guy's the one that does this or whatever. The, the person would be appearing to like, or the sale would end up flowing to me
Yeah.
without me doing anything. And I would just be observant and going, oh, well, this is wonderful. I don't, just so effortless.
Yeah, all
And
those rules and conditions get put aside. They naturally get put aside. You don't even think about them.
yes,
I've noticed.
yes. And I noticed too, like in relationships or within business, I had all these certain conditions. Well, you have to be this particular way, or you have to
Oh
be
yeah.
strong, or you have to not have emotions, or you not have to. And I would try to do all these things, and sometimes it would appear as though it would work. Then other times it wouldn't. I go, what the heck? But then every time I was in flow, sometimes it would appear this way, sometimes I'd appear this way, and it was just fundamentally exactly how it needed to be
Yeah.
every time. And there was
It
no
appears
like,
as it appears.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
Well, congratulations to that.
thank
What a
you.
great place to be.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And like I said, your information has been like in my opinion, I think your information has been the most helpful that I found. So thank you for continuing to share this information and continuing to help people with it. And for those of you that are interested to watch more of Joseph Rodriguez's information, I will put the link in the description below. And yeah, Joseph, thank you so much for coming on here and for taking time to be a part of this.
You're welcome, Joseph. Thank you very much for inviting me. This has been so much fun. I enjoyed it. I appreciate you. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you, guys.